You want a boat that can get there a bit quicker, and that's what the 27-degree deadrise gives me. If you're on a time frame or you're on a budget, it's probably not for you. My name's Grant Tucker. I've got a small tower crane business here on the Sunshine Coast. We're based in Landsborough and just live out at Glasshouse Mountains. And yeah, we take the boats out regularly from Mooloolaba. Really good spot here on the sunny coast. We're really lucky with the waterways we've got, and pretty good spot. Got a 1972 model V17 Stejcraft. It was the first model Stejcraft ever built and produced. Weren't too many of them made. Pretty rare sort of a hull at the time, early 70s. Don't believe the hull was particularly popular because of the deadrise. A little bit tippy at rest, so it didn't really suit a lot of family boating, which was sort of the market back then, was either family or commercial. So yeah, they made them for a couple of years and ceased and started changing what they do towards family designs. So they're still around today. They've been around for what, 53 years now, so a fairly successful business. So they brought them out with a flooding keel. It just helped the weight in the bottom of them, a little bit more stability. They were the first company to actually do the flooded keel, so that was their innovation. This one in particular actually had an inboard in it, so I cut all that out, added the short pod extension, hull extension. Now suits the outboard. Somewhat got it pretty spot on because it rides really well, balanced really nicely. Well, I wasn't particularly looking for this hull. I honestly did not know that they existed, never heard of them, never seen them. So when it just popped up, I was just on at the right time, saw it very quickly, saw the photos, saw the information, and immediately within 5 minutes, I just bought it, organised the transport to get it up here, and yeah, asked the wife later. The 27-degree deadrise was something that I really wanted in this small hull. You don't see it too often, and I just wanted something a little bit unique, not just another Haines V17, but something that potentially was as capable, if not more so. And yeah, it's a real head turner. It's gets a lot of attraction at the ramp, and also a lot of people that come and say, "Oh, I've got one of those," and I say, "Oh, do you really?" Yeah, Haines V17. I said, yeah, no, definitely not. Yeah, I only know of 2 others. One's in Tasmania, another one down in Victoria. I've never seen any others aside those 2, so pretty rare from what I understand. So when I bought it, it was completely in ruins. It had a small garden growing inside it, literally full of dirt and a few weeds. It had good, fairly straight lines, which is important when you're doing a rebuild. You know, the structure's coming out anyway, but you need to make sure that the hull is relatively straight and no major issues there. So as far as that side of things goes, it was a fairly good hull to start with. So the simplicity of the outcome of the boat doesn't probably resonate through the actual build. It was quite a tricky build. Had it sandblasted, just to get into those spots that you just can't get to with any tool. I just wanted a really good base to begin this journey. So after sandblasting, did a coat of vinyl ester resin just to get that good bond between old and then the new stuff that I was putting into it. After that, started with the main keel. It's 38mm thermalite, and then the subfloor under the tank, which below that is where the flooded keel. It took a little bit of working out to get that sorted. Once the flooded keel was in, from that point onwards, it's basically just like any other rebuild. Your stringer grid goes in, and foam fill, floor, fuel tank. The other tricky part about the build was being a sealed floor. You've really got to think about, you literally have no access below it, and I mean nothing. So the fuel tank and lines, you know, you're putting triple clamps and sealant on every hose and every attachment, and you're not taking any risks that you're going to have any problems in the future. Making sure you use really quality items. I put a 200 litre tank in this boat, which is massive, because I wanted that really good range. If we take it up to Fraser, or you want to go on a big trip somewhere and you don't want to refuel or carry 30 jerry cans, you've got that ability. And also, the more weight you can have in the bottom of the hull, the better it's going to ride too. So the big fuel tank was a bit of a no-brainer. The other thing I had to really think about carefully with the sealed floor was the scuppers. In a small boat like this, you don't really see them because generally they are going to be at waterline or potentially under waterline, which is exactly like what these ones are. The scuppers are just below the platform at the back, which it's not constantly underwater, but yeah, as the boat moves forward and back, they're in the water, they're out of the water. So they had to be absolutely spot on. So the system I came up with for that, in theory, was brilliant. And it was a little bit of a, will it work or won't it? It so happens that it just works absolutely perfectly. Yeah, the whole rear end though was very tricky. The detail that sort of went into it, I guess, the back wall, I've angled so that the water actually moves towards the scuppers. Because you're moving forward, instead of having that back wall flat, well, my actual back wall is shaped to make the water move to the scuppers to escape. So there's nothing in there at all. So I had a few things that I wasn't particularly negotiable about in this build, and steering height and comfort is paramount. You've got to be able to be comfortable and steer it correctly and use all the functions at once, and it's got to be safe and functional. So the height that I wanted my steering didn't work with the original dash. It was 200 or 300 mil too low. So the steering wheel had to come up a mile. The other prerequisite that I had was the sounders. Personally, I always like to run a sounder and a plotter separately. Even if you've got a 20-inch and you split them, it just annoys the hell out of me. I've got to have two separate screens. And the only way I was going to fit two 9-inch screens in this was vertically, one above the other. So the combination of the steering and the screens, it basically meant that I had to run my dash vertically into the wave breaker, and that obviously eliminated the ability to have a glass windscreen, which I didn't really want anyway. I do like the look of the wave breaker. It's rock solid. It's 5 layers of glass, a 5mm core, and then another 5 layers of glass, and then it's got the vertical dash, also extra strength, glassed in sort of 3/4 of the way up. So I'd be fairly confident it could actually cop a proper wave and not be an issue at all. So functionality, a little bit of looks, mainly functionality was the reason behind it. It's got a 140 horsepower Suzuki. It's got really good hole shot, gets up very smooth. It doesn't, a lot of boats you'll see sort of the nose rise up and the arse dips down, and it sort of takes a little while to jump up, and this gets up on the plane very differently. It pushes water out of the way like no other boat of its size that I've ever seen. And it stays very flat, and it just jumps up so quickly. And next minute, you're doing 40, 50 Ks an hour. It's pretty cool. 140, it's a fairly lightweight motor, very, very good on fuel, 2.5 kilometers per litre. So it's got plenty of go. So pretty happy with the motor selection on the boat. In its size range, nothing really compares to it. It's hard to explain, but it feels like you're in a much bigger, much heavier boat. Any conditions, it just pushes through the water really, really well. It's weighted very nicely. If you trim it right, you can pretty much ride in any conditions 6 or 7 knots faster than anything else I've been in. It's a lot of fun. It's a driver's boat. It enjoys a little bit of speed. You give it, the better it goes. And yeah, it does some pretty amazing things when you think, oh shit, this is going to bang, or it's going to pound, or this is going to hurt. It just doesn't, and you can't stop that smile from coming onto your face. It's really good. Yeah, look, if there was a modern hull that I could think of today that is fairly close to what this is, it probably is the 520 Sea Devil. It does look fairly similar, the flooded keel, the deep deadrise, the horns at the front, you know, venting the keel. It's fairly similar, so, you know, not sure when they started, but this was 1972, so who copied who, I don't know. Simple is really the idea. I didn't want seats and to take up heaps of room. Yeah, esky seat, sort of chose this one because it's nice and long. I've got a meter internally, so you can still get a good fish in there. And it's quite narrow and fairly tall, so it's a perfect seat height. You don't want anything super wide. It's going to end up like 200 litres and you need 5 bags of ice. So this, I think it's about 120 litres, but it's just got a good length to it. I wouldn't have a clue how many hours I've put into it. It probably took 18 months from when I bought it to now. There was a period of 3 or 4 months where I didn't touch it at all, but somewhere between 1,000 and probably 1,500 hours, like a ridiculous amount really. But a lot of nights, finish work, and I'd work on it some nights till 9 or 10 o'clock, you know, and the weekends, fairly fortunate we don't work too many weekends. Haven't exactly kept tabs on it, but it would owe me around 40 grand in product, motor and items. Obviously there's no labour, you can't talk about labour, but I would say about 40 grand. We haven't named it. When I got it, it was called Tim's Toy. So Tim, he's the son of Sam who started Stejcraft. The 4 letters STEJ are Sam's family members. That's how Stejcraft name came about. So I've no idea if Tim's Toy had any relevance to the son Tim or not, but Tim's Toy was the original name. We haven't decided to change it at all at this stage.